Hmm.
So, honey, you're here and you don't feel 100% and you made it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, thanks. But I really, Patty, I love these classes.
You are such a natural. I can't even tell you how proud you make me. And, for me to be able to claim to be, your first
Oh,
hypnosis teacher just makes, that's why I do this. People like you and
thank you.
Terry and some of the people that have been taking my medical hypnosis just really have re-energized me. Not that I wasn't ever
Oh,
stopped being passionate about this work, but the training part of it, as the classes got so small over the years, doing the live stuff, and I'd have 2 or 3 in a class, it got more challenging
yeah.
because it really, if there's only 1 or 2, you see what's happening with this class. It gets to where it just doesn't have that cohesive continuity
Yeah.
that
Could lose
keeps
some
it moving. Yeah.
momentum. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that class was just so beautiful, and they're all so dedicated. Most of them have been back for different things. Those little free classes I do are wonderful. You've been to at least
Yeah, I
one.
haven't been to your little your Wednesdays, right?
It's the third Wednesday each month.
Third Wednesday.
This month I'm doing. It'll be a week from this Wednesday, the 16th. I'm doing be a powerful, positive people magnet. Because, Valentine's Day, but I didn't want to make it just about a significant person because not everybody needs that or wants that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's about just attracting positive people into your life, whether it's,
Wow.
it can be a partner, it can be a job, related, it can be the perfect boss or the perfect employee,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
just friends, just people.
Mm.
So, well, kiddo, you want to talk about parts?
Yeah, I would love to hear about parts. Sure.
And I didn't send you guys the handout because I had it all printed out for you. I was going to hand it to you. I was going to hand you the handout,
Oh, okay.
but I will
It'd be
do
nice
that
to
next
get
time
one.
I see
Get it
you.
next time.
I'll give it to you next time I see you.
Okay.
But actually, I don't usually do it like this, but I mentioned that this is actually from the medical hypnosis training. And the only reason I brought this one is because I've added more things to this that are more about the background of parts therapy that I think is kind of interesting. And for you guys, I just figured I don't usually show it in this class, parts of it, but I thought I'd show you some of this because to me, I find it kind of interesting. Like I said, parts therapy can be a lot more extensive training just by itself, like so many things. Like Tad James, he used to do timeline therapy, and that was multi-day class, right? Just for that. And
Okay.
same with parts therapy. It can be a multi-day class. And I might have mentioned that Roy Hunter is the go-to parts therapy trainer for IACT and IMDHA for the last few years. And he teaches the style, and he carried the mantle from Charles Tebbets, who you'll see in this presentation. Charles Tebbets is, again, from the last century. He was associated with creating parts therapy. Now, that doesn't mean he's the only or the first person to ever come up with the concept, just like timeline or just like any of these things, just like hypnosis. It was around for centuries before somebody came up with that term, but it was always changing. And he is, the one that actually created the field of parts therapy. So Charles Tebbets.
How do you spell Tebbets?
He's in here. You'll see it. But Tebbetts. There he is. 2 B's and 2 T's. So we'll get to him in a second, a little bit more. But Roy Hunter, as a younger man, had trained with him quite a bit and became his pupil. And Tebbets was his mentor. And he taught him, so much about parts therapy and kind of developed him as being the next trainer of his, what he called client-centered parts therapy. And when he died, before he died, he literally handed over the mantle, as I said, for Roy Hunter to carry on his work. When he told Roy he wanted him to carry on, his his client-centered parts therapy, he also gave him permission, according to Roy, to update it, to modify it somewhat, because, you know, styles were changing and he was even aware of that. And one of the main things that Roy changed was some of the wording from parts therapy that as Tebbets did it, was that he would negotiate. He would have the parts, and people still use negotiate, by the way, that teach this. I hear it still quite a bit. But he talks about negotiating, and it was more the hypnotist stepping in and making recommendations for the parts, right? Now, you've already heard my opinion about hypnotists giving advice, so you know how I would have felt about that. And even Tebbets, to his credit, you know, was aware that this may not be, you know, it might be better if it comes from the client, because that, again, it was starting to get more into, because largely because of Erickson, into the idea that the answers need to come from the client, not us giving them answers. Okay. So that was a hard transition for a lot of hypnotists to make, especially the ones that came from, which most of them did, from stage hypnosis, which was more directive, more dictatorial, if you will. You know, I'm going to tell you what to do, and your subconscious mind in hypnosis will do what I tell it to do. And that's what you want it to do anyway. So you'll take and to some extent that did work, right? Because that is generally, except, like I said, it started transitioning into, why don't we, instead of assuming that even what they tell us they want and us repeating it back to them in hypnosis as if that's going to be more powerful, and yes, it is to a point, but why don't we get them into hypnosis and discover more about what this is about so that we can make sure that's really what they need? So it became more and client-centered, again, to Tebbets' credit, he was already becoming aware, you know, client-centered, meaning coming from the client, you know, or individualized at the very least to the client. But he still was, you know, negotiating and making recommendations and guiding it more than we would, or at least those of us that are more the Ericksonian, the new wave of hypnosis, to where we actually feel like all of it comes from the client. We're just opening possibilities and questions and letting them discover what direction they actually want to go. So anyway, that's kind of how Roy Hunter ended up being the guy, because he was directly appointed by Tebbets. Yeah. Got it.
So I have a question. I remember when I was doing hypnosis, when I was Jeff's client, and when I was under, he would ask me questions, and we discovered a lot of things when I was under.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'll learn how to do. You think is good?
Absolutely. That's part of what I'm always talking about in the pre-talk. Oh. Because, you know, in the pre-talk, I just did the first, I think I sent you the thing, but I know you weren't feeling well, but I just did the first of my Create Your Ideal Healthy Body. I had a couple ladies there who'd never really had much experience with hypnosis. One of them had gone to a hypnotist a few times a long time ago, but they didn't know much about what I was talking about. And I was talking to them about just, you know, in the pre-talk for the class. And every once in a while I would tell them, well, let me just show you something. Close your eyes. Right. Now, I wasn't officially doing the ritual of, I'm going to put you into hypnosis now kind of a thing. But I must have done it at least twice while we were just talking. Right. And I would say, close your eyes and go back to that and bring in all of your senses. I was doing a little hypnosis induction, and then I would ask them questions. And I would say things like, what was it? What I was doing the first time, I think, was one of the ladies started talking about that morning before the class. She had, I guess she lives close to the beach or something, and she had either gone to the beach or she was looking out at the beach or something. And there was somebody out there with a flying pig balloon. A flying pig balloon. And she started, and of course, as she said that, she's laughing, and just saying that made us laugh, just like it just made you laugh, right? It's just not what you expected to hear. And so she got into this, and they had both been kind of like real serious up to that point. So when she started laughing and the other lady started laughing, I grabbed that moment because it loosened everything up. And I said, oh my gosh, I said, that just sounds amazing. No. And I said, both of you close your eyes. And this is what I would have done with her. She was my private client, but I had another lady there. So I took advantage of piggybacking, if you will, off piggybacking, flying pig. Ooh, that just came out, didn't it? On what she had said, because they were both laughing about it. And I'd had them close their eyes. And I did a little hypnosis session right there without them even realizing what I was doing. And I told her, I said, now for you, go back to that moment that you enjoyed so much and just put yourself right back there now. And I said, for the other lady, I said, you go to something that makes you just feel wonderful. And she said, I didn't ask her to answer me, but she said out loud with her eyes closed, my new granddaughter. And she got this big smile. I said, that's right. That's right. Yeah. And she was already in a good place, just laughing about the imaginary. I mean, we both had it in our mind what this goofy balloon must have looked like, but we didn't actually see it, but it still made us laugh and feel good, right? So they're already getting into a good state. So to me, the questions that we ask in the pre-talk as well, remember, hypnosis is about state. And the better state the person's in, the more deeply they're going to go into hypnosis.
Wow.
Right. And the easier they're going to get their goal, because it's those other states, those stuck states, if you will, and those limiting states and those frustration states and stress states and fear states and all of that. Those are the ones that are keeping them from getting their goal, because getting their goal requires them to be in their best state. So no matter what the goal is, it's always the same process, really. You know, we have a lot of different techniques, some of which are better for some things than others. Parts therapy, for instance, to do parts therapy, you have to have two opposing forces, which frankly is there pretty much with everything they walk in with, or they wouldn't be stuck, right? Part of me wants this and part of me is keeping me from it, right?
Right? That's what parts means. Parts
therapy. You have a part of you. So the ideal person to do parts therapy with is the one who walks in and says, you know, a part of me really wants to quit smoking, but there's another part of me that just loves it. And they'll actually use the language. And I had this happen in a class one time, and I was doing a demo, and I stopped and I asked the class, I said, what pops in your head that you might do with this person that just said that, what they just said? And they literally had said, a part of me wants this and a part of me doesn't. A part of me is fighting against it, or something like that. They used the word parts. And they'd already learned about parts therapy. And I said, so what technique would pop in your mind? And nobody said parts therapy. I was sitting there going, she said the words, but it's not always that obvious. That's why I do a lot on listening skills too. And we haven't done enough on that yet, obviously. Listening is getting out of your own head, ask a question and watch the response, not just the words, but the nonverbal. That's why I said, when I see them get in a good state, I want to grab that right there and then. And that's what I did. I got them both to think of it. Now I've got the one thinking about getting back to that place of the pig, the flying pig balloon. And then I had the other one now with the new grandbaby that I already knew was just going to get her, because she immediately shifted into that, oh yeah, big smile. And I said, bring in anything, all of your senses, and be there right now. Remember, when you do that, when you're putting them into something positive or in the future, their future self, their future, because it's in the future, it's always going to be what they want. But when they're thinking of something positive, you want them to be there as if it's happening right now again. So that lady had that from just that morning. And I carried that theme through. I found my unconscious, I was really on a roll, I think, on Wednesday, or what day was it? Yeah, Thursday. Because it ended up popping up again several times, because it was part of her theme for the day. And even as she was leaving, when we were getting ready to leave, I said something like, that flying pig from now on, because we were talking about commitment, and they both signed up for 3 of these classes. And I said, it's real important to get the momentum going. And we went through all that already. And I said, that flying pig is going to be your symbol now, to remind you of this crazy morning you had seeing this flying pig. And that was the start of your new journey here. That's always going to be symbolic of you starting this new journey. And I wanted to re-imprint that before she left because it kept coming back up, and she had had that experience. So when I got them there, of course, and got all their senses involved, and I could see they were both in just a beautiful place. You know, you can see people's whole energy shifts. And I took a little bit of time with it. I took probably 5 minutes talking to them. And I said things, I asked things like, and ask yourself, what is it about this that I'm thinking about that is making me feel so amazing? And notice what it is about this that makes you, you know, because it's going to be a little different for both of them, right? But it's all positive, healthy, and all that. So, and then I had them anchor it, and they didn't even know what I was doing yet. I don't remember if we'd even talked about it yet. I said, take an intentional, nice, deep breath as if you're breathing all of this wonderfulness in, and press your fingers and thumbs together, a thumb and a finger on each hand. And just as if you're pressing it in there. And then I literally just had them come back out. After a few seconds of having them press it, you know, I just said, okay, now open your eyes and come back out here. And so I did a little hypnosis process there. And by asking an open-ended question, I don't know what each of them thought of in their mind, but I know whatever it was for them. What is it that makes them feel so good about thinking about the grandbaby or the balloon? So now what have I done? I've anchored a resource already, because they're going to need a lot of resource states in order to reach the goal that's going to take for one of them a couple of years. She said she needs to lose 100 pounds. That's a lot of weight.
Wow.
She didn't look like she needed to lose that much, but that's what she said. So I believe her. And the other one, you know, it's going to take, I think she said 6 months.
Yeah.
To lose what she wants to lose. So we got the specific number for each of them. I said, you don't need to tell me, but make sure it's a number that you can keep flashing on. That's your destination. And you might get this side of it and decide you're happy there. That's fine. It might change later, but for now, you want to have that bullseye. So we went through all of that already. So now I'm anchoring things. But as far as questions, with parts therapy, one of the things I love about it is it's in light hypnosis. Now, that's something that Roy Hunter.
Light hypnosis, parts therapy.
Light.
Oh.
Alpha state, because they are talking to you through the whole thing, literally talking through the whole thing. And by the way, most of it is with their eyes open.
Wow.
And I'm saying light hypnosis, meaning they're not knocked out to the point where they wouldn't even be able to answer you. Like where they're zoned out and can't hear you kind of a thing, which for some things is fine. For parts therapy, they are literally in that way in light alpha state. And yet I think of it as deep work. I think literally they go deep into hypnosis while they're doing parts therapy. Because remember what creates depth? Involvement, right? Involvement creates depth. It's like getting lost in an amazing book, where your focus is so on that everything else is gone from your mind. And that's, to my mind, that is deep hypnosis. That's where I want to be in the dental chair, but I still got to be able to hear when he says, turn your head or open your mouth or spit or something, right? Wow. I got to be able to still be there enough to do that. So with parts therapy, it really makes you realize how deep someone can be in trance with their eyes open and talking. And it's my favorite technique by far. It is so powerful. So like I said, I don't usually show the medical hypnosis. But I'm only doing this because I wanted to show you a little bit. I think you'll appreciate a little bit of and I put this together. Roy Hunter, I am a certified parts therapy trainer for the Tebbets Parts Therapy Foundation. He just started training trainers. Roy Hunter did in Tebbets Parts Therapy, client-centered parts therapy. He just started training trainers. I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago. The first year he did it at the conference, of course, you know who had to jump in and do it. And the funny thing about it is I paid I won't say the word. I paid a lot of money, several $1,000s to do it. And halfway through it, I realized that the first 2 days before the conference was parts therapy, just teaching it to you, Tebbett's style. The second 2 days, which were after the conference, were the trainer's training to become a parts therapy trainer through the Tebbett's Foundation, which he had just established. He had just created that at that time. Like I said, I think it was about 5 years ago or so. And I was on the first class, and after I got there and paid all that money, it turned out, and they, by the way, they sell the two pieces separately. So if you just want to learn parts therapy Tebbett's style, you paid for that, and you became certified in Tebbett's parts therapy. If you want to become a trainer's trainer for parts therapy, you took that part and the second part. So I found out after I paid for all that that since I already had trained in parts therapy with someone who he approved, I didn't know it at the time. I happened to mention this guy, Jamie Feldman, I said, yeah, I took parts therapy with him, years ago. This is like after I think the first day of training. And he said, oh, you did? Oh, well, then you would be grandfathered in. Now, he's telling me I wouldn't have had to take that first 2 days. And yet, guess what? I still paid for it. Now, the interesting thing was, I was also trained by Robert Otto to be a hypnotic fat man trainer's trainer. I think a year or two before that. He has a program he started, and it kind of fizzled, but it's Hypnotic Fat Man. It was a play on words, and it was to compete with the people that were doing the, what's that, virtual gastric band thing. That was getting real popular with hypnotists, and I really didn't like that idea. But some people were really into it. And so he wanted to kind of do a different take on that. So his was called Hypnotic Fat Man, like with the circle and the X, or the line through it, the red line, fat man, and it had nothing to do with the virtual gastric band stuff that was out there, but he was doing that. So anyway, I became a trainer for that. Now he had somebody that was like me, a trainer for him, that was supposed to do a class the second day of the parts therapy thing for the conference. And after I found out I really didn't need to take that, and the other guy didn't show up, the trainer didn't show up. So he said, I was the only other one there at the conference that he knew was a trainer. So he said, can you do the fat man thing? So I got out of the second day, but I still paid for it. And it was, I have to, with all due respect and with all love, and definitely with respect for Roy Hunter, he is not the most fascinating, interesting presenter in the world. I was literally falling asleep the whole first day, and I was so happy when Robert asked me to do this class for him. So I was more than happy. And then I took the 2-day trainer's training post, which was a whole nother story. But just to tell you, I made my own presentations. I did the Tebbett's one that Roy trained us to do. We have to give him 10% when we do classes on that. When we certify people through the Tebbett's Foundation, which I thought would be great. But we have to use his materials and his PowerPoints and stuff, which is fine. The first, I think, 3 times. I did it twice. And then I just decided I liked the way I do parts therapy better. And I just went back to that. And I just haven't done it since then. So I don't know. But anyway, but this is what I started putting together on my own. And just again, to give you a little background on it, and this is from my medical thing. Oh, and just to back up just a hair, when I started, I have a version of parts therapy that I developed for this class that I've been doing, for years, and I tweak it every now and then. But then I also, when I started doing the medical hypnotherapy certification, I wanted to do one I wanted to do a different parts therapy based on health issues, really specifically for health issues. So I revamped some of the pieces and I put together a presentation, assuming that everybody in the medical hypnotherapy, since they're required to already be certified through some organization somewhere, with at least 200 hours of training, assuming they had some kind of parts therapy training. Well, I was wrong. For the last 3 or 4 years since I've been doing the medical, almost none of them even knew what I was talking about, unfortunately, when I started bringing up parts therapy. So here I am in my medical training now. I'm having to go to basics and teach them parts there, because that was a nice chunk of the work. Plus, I just wanted them to get it. I said, you didn't get this in your training? So it ended up being more of a complete parts therapy training, the way I do it for the medical people. So this is Charles Tebbets again, who originated officially the term parts therapy. He said that client-centered parts therapy is based on the concept that the answers to a client's problem can be found within the inner mind of the client. So he already had that idea, even though he was doing a lot of leading back in those days, but he did understand that it comes from them. And the 4 hypnotherapeutic steps to facilitate change. Number 1, to discover the cause. We talk a lot in hypnosis about discovering root cause, initial sensitizing event. You remember those terms, they mean the same thing. So you discover the cause with parts therapy. Number 2 is to release and or reframe, right? Number 3 is unconscious relearning. And number 4 is post-hypnotic suggestion and imagery. Now, this is the way he talks about it. And discovering the cause, he talks about, that's, in his words, hitting pay dirt when you discover what the cause is. That's the way he would talk about it. And there's a whole bunch of other people around the world that literally started hearing about each other after each of them had developed a program that when they all got together and talked, they all sounded an awful lot like parts therapy. So it does make you wonder about what kind of information is out there. Like Carl Jung said, universal consciousness kind of an idea, that ideas are in the air and they all seem to come up with it at the same time without knowing each other. Now, they called them different things. Charles Tebbets called it parts therapy. Gordon Emerson called it ego state therapy, right? But it was the same thing. Different ego states we have, right? And that comes, ego, of course, out of more of the Freudian style of psychotherapy. So that was kind of a leftover from Freud. But Gordon Emerson said about, when we're talking about discovering the cause, both the client's and the therapist's speculations regarding the cause are often inaccurate. So that goes along with kind of what I said earlier. Your client comes in saying they think they know what's wrong and they think they know what they want. But once you're doing hypnosis, that can take sometimes a dramatic shift. And by the end of by the end or the middle of the first session, they might all of a sudden say, I just realized something. One of those kind of aha moments. And then they say, I came here thinking this is what I want. And I just realized what I really want is this. And it's not that they're not related. It's not that they're not related. It's that their conscious mind was aware of something that was more of a surface issue, which is why I said I'm always that subtext, trying to listen beyond the words, which means beyond what their conscious mind even thinks is going on. So there you go.
Wow.
So if you're only looking at the client and listening to what they're telling you and trying to help them get just that, and if you don't have a broader approach that's giving space for more possibilities, then you may very likely end up not getting the client what really is possible for them. So that's where that's staying in that open state that I talk about all the time. And to me, I get there with that same idea. Now I don't even have to do it physically, but it's the same. Now it's trained in. I can just ask for it and it shows up. If it doesn't, I can literally put my fingers and thumbs together and take a breath. And there it is. Ooh, powerful. The more you do it, the more powerful it gets, the better it gets. And it never goes the other direction. It just gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And yes, it automates after a while, but you can keep getting it stronger and stronger even after it's automated.
Wait, what do you mean it's automated after a while?
So like any habit, once the, they say all learning occurs at the unconscious level. So as soon as it locks in, you're practice. Now it just shows up for me. And sometimes I'll be in front of a class that through the years, and I've explained that this is the way I do it and all that. And every once in a while, somebody say, you just did that. And I wouldn't even have known that I did it. It's like my unconscious literally made the move without me even realizing it, because I must have needed some extra energy or focus or something. So it can be done intentionally still, which is nice to keep it growing. But after a while, it becomes automated. So when, well, a good example, when I told you about the car accident I had 2 weeks after I bought a brand new car when I first moved to Florida, my red car that I was so proud of. And well, anyway, someone ran into it in a parking lot it was at a preserve. And I had the afternoon off, and I said, oh, I haven't seen that preserve yet. So I drove back there. Nobody was there. There was like 2 cars in the whole parking lot. And I'm driving through about 5 miles an hour in a big SUV. The back tail lights go on, and I go, uh-oh, and I'm putting my car in reverse by the time I even got it in reverse, because I could see he was getting ready to pull out real fast. He just plowed into the back of my car, or the front of my car, sorry. And it turned out to be a ranger. Yeah, it was one of the guys that works at the preserve. He was one of the, whatever they're called.
Park ranger, yeah.
Park ranger. Instantly, my mind, because the first reaction would be my brand new, beautiful red car just got plowed into. I did that. And then I did it on purpose 3 times before it went. And I literally wasn't angry. I wasn't happy, obviously, but I was in a neutral state, and I was clear-minded, and I looked and I said, yep, it'll have to get fixed. He looks fine. He's on the phone. He must be calling. He already pulled back into the parking space by then. And I didn't know who he was yet, but I did notice then. I saw that there was the sign on the side from the park service. And that's when I took, a moment to say, yeah, I'm fine. Car will have to get fixed, but I'm okay. And when I did it the 3rd time, I felt all the anger gone. And when I met him, he was the nicest guy in the world. He right away said it was his fault. He said, I didn't think anybody was even here, and I was in a hurry, and I got on my radio, and I wasn't paying attention. He just admitted it immediately. And I said, what a nice guy. And then it was so far back in the middle of nowhere that it took a long time for people to come. I had called my husband, and he had called the park service. And so I'm standing there, and, nobody else around. And he's pointing out birds. I was new to Florida. So he's pointing out the birds and telling me what kind of bird it is. And then I heard some, what sounded like gunshots in the distance. I said, that sounded like gunshots. He said, oh yeah, there's a firing range over there. And he's pointing out all these different, so I got like a personal, tour, nicest guy in the world. They fixed the car, everything's fine. But it got rid of it. It was automated, but I still had to work it 3 times it reminded me, in other words, my unconscious reminded me to do it. When I got that instant shock of somebody just wrecked my brand new car, right? It came in and reminded me to take control, and it worked. And then I was teaching a hypnosis class at that time, and had my own facility then, and we'd done a couple classes already, and everybody knew how excited I was about my brand new red car, right? Because we'd had a class like the week before or something. And so they're all showing up the next weekend, and one by one, as they come through the door, everybody did the exact same thing. They'd say, where's your car? Where's your new car? Because it wasn't sitting there. I said, oh, that's right. Somebody ran into me. I'm driving that little whatever it was, they gave me the rental car. And immediately when I would say that, they'd all go, oh my gosh. And I'd say, no, it's okay. It's okay. It's getting fixed. Everything's fine. And at that point, like I said, this happened over and over, each person that came in. And then they would look at me like, what do you mean? You're not upset? And I'd say, no, everything's fine. It's getting fixed. And then they would calm down, because if I let them go, right, and then I start ranting and they start ranting, and then they go home and tell somebody else, it's like it just gets all that stuff going again. Yeah. So that happened to several people. And it gave me an opportunity in class to say, you know what, when something bad happens to you and then you repeat it to somebody else later, you bring all those same horrible chemicals into your body. It's not healthy. And then usually the person you're talking to is going to say, oh God, somebody did that to me one time. And now they're going to go back to their bad experience, and they're going to feel terrible and have all those horrible chemicals in their body. And you just perpetuate it. And in my case, I couldn't get upset about it, because I nipped it, as they used to say, in the bud. My unconscious cut it off before it went into full blown anger. And by the way, full-blown anger would have been absolutely understandable. And everybody I repeated the story to would have understood and supported me being angry about that idiot running into my car. And I probably would have thought he was an idiot by then. Instead, he was a really nice guy. And I didn't have all that stuff going on. It wouldn't have changed anything except made me unhealthy by having all of that going, right? So it was a great opportunity for me to teach the class something. I would have preferred it happened another way, you know, of course, but hey, life does what it does to teach us lessons sometimes. So that's the thing. There was a lady at the VFW the other day. I go there to play these little games they have. And there's a woman there that's 90 years old that I just love her. She is so sweet. She's always made up and got her pretty hair and makeup and nails and clothes and jewelry. And I'm always complimenting how great she looks because I'm usually on my off days. So I have my hair up on top of my head and, you know, I always wear makeup because I don't have a face if I don't. But, you know, I'm usually in blue jeans or something, you know. And I'm always complimenting her. So we're sitting there and we just laugh and have a good time. She's kind of the way my mom used to be with gambling. She just likes to play, you know. And so we go and we do what we can do. And there was another woman there who was talking to the commander's wife, was playing at some other games. And this woman started talking. I could hear her off to the side telling the commander's wife some of her health issues that were happening and her doctors and this and that. And then when the commander's wife left, this woman stands up, getting ready to leave, and she walks over to my friend, the 90-year-old, and she's on her other side standing, and she just starts talking to her. And I remember Bonnie is her name, my friend. She looks at me, and I looked at her, and I'm like, I'm not listening. And she just started complaining to her. She didn't even say hello or anything. She just came over and kept talking. And at one point, Bonnie looked up and said, "Are you talking to me?" And it was so sweet. And she just kept going. And she's saying this and that and talking about all these disgusting things that are going. And finally, I looked up and I said, "Please, please." And I was kind of laughing, but I wanted to let her know, I don't come to hear all this crap, you know. And Bonnie was getting irritated, but she's too nice to say anything. So finally, you know, she said, "Oh, I'm sorry. You two probably just want to sit here and have fun." I said, "Yeah, you know."
Yeah.
You know. And then she said something like, "But I just have so many problems, you know, you just don't under." And I said, "Yeah, you're the only one in this place, I'm sure, that has all those problems." I got a little bit rude with her, but I didn't get rude enough that she really, you know what I mean? I just felt like somebody needed to tell her.
Yeah.
And finally she said, "Oh yeah, I guess you're right. Other people, yeah, okay, well, you know." And then she finally left and Bonnie said, "Thank you." And I said, "Bonnie, you're just too nice." I said, you can't let people upset you like that, because she's the nicest person and she'll sit there and feel bad for her. And you know, she's 90, so she doesn't need that. But it's just, it's a human habit that some people have very badly. And I used to bring up in class once in a while. I don't know if I've done it in this one. Have you ever known someone that after you've known them for a good amount of time, you realize you should never ask them, "How are you?" And you know what I'm talking about. That's one of those people. Because they're going to start telling you. And it's not that you can't be compassionate and caring and listen when your friends need you to listen a little bit, but you don't do anybody a favor by diving into all of that with them and letting them live in it any longer than they absolutely have to.
Yeah.
You know, you do them a favor if you can help them to get their mind on something a little more pleasant and get out of that once in a while. So anyway, so that's enough of my ranting about the annoying woman at the VFW. But anyway, had to protect my friend Bonnie. She's 90. Come on, you know, leave her alone. She's trying to have fun. So hitting pay dirt, all of that good stuff. Emerson, you don't need to remember any of this, but it's just kind of interesting to me. And I think I have a picture of him later. The second part is about releasing, right? You get to the root cause. Releasing, parts therapy can be used to facilitate forgiveness, understanding, unconscious release from the cause, all of those things. Again, there's one school of thought amongst some hypnotists that learned that every process you have to get forgiveness. The person has to forgive themselves. They have to forgive everybody else. And some people are really into that. I don't necessarily think that's it. It's like anytime somebody says you have to do something, you know me well enough to know my first instinct is, well, maybe. Maybe some people don't have to do that, you know. And the word forgiveness for some people is a trigger.
Yeah.
Some people think forgiveness means you're letting them off the hook for doing something horrible to you, or you're letting yourself off the hook for doing something horrible. So I like to use different language than that personally. And it may be because of my own biases about the word. Very likely is, because we all have biases. And not that I never use forgive if it seems right for the client, but I don't just go to that automatically. One time I heard a lady who made me rethink that word by telling, I don't know if this is true, but she said the word forgiveness, actually the root meaning of that means to send away. And I loved that.
Oh, wow.
To send away. And I don't know if that's true, but she sounded like she knew what she was talking about, and I liked it. So to forgive is to send away, and everybody knows forgiveness is for yourself. You know, you're not forgiving, you know, your ancestor for doing what they did that hurt you. You know, you're not condoning it, in other words. But everybody says you have to forgive them because it frees you. But even that doesn't sit right with some people. It's like, but, right? So you can reframe and send it away in that you don't hold on to the anger or the grudge or the regret or any of that stuff, right? That makes sense to me. So just different language, but it is used by a lot of people, and some people go straight for forgiveness and root cause, which is fine. Mm-hmm. Okay. Randall Churchill, he was the founder of Hypnotherapy Training Institute. Good name, huh? How did he get that one? American Council president. He was the first president of the American Council of Hypnotist Examiners. I remember him from Arizona. He used to be at those things with Dr. Preston and all those guys hanging out. So it says that his school was the first licensed hypnotherapy school in 1978. I don't know if that's accurate, but that probably could be true. License just means you're licensed with the state, like Matthew Brownstein has his Institute for Transpersonal Hypnotherapy, whatever he's changed the name to, in Tampa. He's got it licensed by the state, but all that means is it's licensed as a post-secondary school by the state, and he has to jump through a lot of hoops and pay them money. Doesn't mean anything to do with hypnosis. It's just jumping through the hoops to be a licensed school because it sounds good, like so many other things. Like I'm a certified hypnotist. Right. Doesn't necessarily mean you're any more, you know, qualified, because you don't have to legally be certified to perform hypnosis with people. It's just not necessary. It just gives you credibility. So some people think licensing their school gives them credibility. I made the decision not to do my school because I don't want to live by their rules. I don't want any bureaucracy. I'm sorry. It's hard enough dealing with the ones I have to deal with. So it's important to note that, and actually I think I added this. It's important to note that forgiving does not mean condoning, yet some clients may find the words let it go or release it to be more comfortable than forgive. It's usually very important that they forgive themselves. Randall, I guess that was Randall Churchill. So I like him. I like the way he said that. Okay. So let's see here. The third part, post-hypnotic suggestion and imagery with a strong motivating desire. Remember that emotion is very important. Post-hypnotic suggestion, direct or indirect, may be sufficient, Tebbets says. And I agree, because my dad quit smoking because he got pissed off. He had a strong motivating desire. He didn't want to stand outside in the snow and smoke his cigarettes. And he gave his mind a direct suggestion. He said, I'm done. And he threw them away. So sometimes direct suggestion with enough emotion can work. Without a strong desire, either the conscious or the subconscious may easily block the suggestions, and that's true. And sometimes they think they really want something, but there's a lot of other stuff going on, as we know. Okay. Origins of parts therapy again. Some other variations, ego state therapy we mentioned, voice dialogue, sub-personalities, all of those things were kind of being coined at the same time by different people around the world. Charles Tebbets based his parts therapy on Paul Federn's work partly, and evolved it into a client approach, combined it with deep hypnosis. See, Tebbets thought you have to put the client into deep hypnosis to do parts therapy. I found that the deeper someone's in hypnosis, the less they want to open their eyes and talk to you. Just to me, it didn't need to be there. Like I said, to me, they are deep, but they're just not the way he was talking. Okay. Based on the concept that our personality is composed of a number of various parts, not like schizophrenia, by the way. This is one of the few techniques that you want to explain some things to the client before you do it. Most techniques you don't announce it ahead of time, because the way they work is by, the element of the unknown and surprise. But this is one of them that you do have a pre-talk, that just for the purpose of letting the client know that when you're talking about parts of their personality, you're not saying, oh, you're like a schizophrenic or something, right? This just means that we have like different hats that we put on. We have different personalities that we use that are appropriate for different contexts. Like the party part isn't going to show up at the funeral, hopefully, right? Although some of the funerals I've been in, the party part shows up too. But that's a whole different thing. But, you have a certain part that shows up when you're at a job interview. If you're in a job interview, it's not the same personality part of you that shows up as the one that shows up when you're out having a drink with your friends, right? So it's different parts of your personality. That's all that means. There's Federn. Now, he was 1952. He's the one that described Freud's ego states, the id, the ego, and the superego, as resembling separate personalities, much like the multiple personalities illustrated in The Three Faces of Eve. Now, he's talking about, because Freud, he's talking about schizophrenia kind of stuff. But differing, Federn says, in that no one of them exists without the awareness of the others. So he's talking about a bulimic will experience time distortion while binging and eating for over an hour and believing that only 5 minutes have elapsed. Remember, we talked about time distortion being a side effect of hypnosis. So when someone's binge eating, they're on automatic, which means their unconscious is in control. That part of them, you might say, has taken charge, and they can binge eat for an hour, over an hour, and it seems like it's only been a few minutes. So it's a form of hypnosis. Ego states, ego parts. Carl Jung, like Federn, believed that we have at least 3 parts. So everybody started getting into parts and naming them and all these different extensive, complicated. And to me, it's like, well, it's more important what the client comes up with, right? And then we got Ego State Therapy, the book. I have this book somewhere. I was looking for it, but I couldn't find it. John Watkins and Helen Watkins, again, closely relating to Emerson's work, took ego state into the 21st century. They say that's what he created. They brought it more modern and started teaching it to hypnotherapy students. And then we have voice dialogue, and that was Helen Sidra Stone created something called voice dialogue.